And she said she wanted to go do this again, wanted to do something else, take the lead. And it was, okay, she's got it. She's learning, she's figured it out. And she'll never have anybody run her down. She'll be tough. She'll be able to think critically through a problem. If I'm not there, she'll be able to figure it out without me.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough. Oh, give me a home where the cattle do roam and the deer and the antelope play. Oh, hi, Producer Emily.
Hey, Michael, are you about ready to start the show?
But I'm enjoying this beautiful country life.
Can you enjoy it from the inside?
But Producer Emily, where nothing is heard
He's
but a
hopeless.
discouraging word, and the cattle just play all day. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about detailing how to cost to gain so you can help grow your business. We're also going to be talking about how do you find the right accountant to audit your accountant. And to guide us through all this is Jack Lavers, the owner of Lavers Ranch. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
For Visioneers who don't know who you are you and what is it that you do?
Well, my name is Jack Lavers. I am a sixth-generation cattle rancher from Glenville, California. My family and I have been running cattle here since 1858. We're one of the oldest in the nation and very proud that we've been able to hold it together this long. And looking forward to my children who are the seventh generation to carry on in my footsteps.
7 generations.
Yeah.
And for Visioneers, if you hear wind chimes, you hear rustling of the wind over the microphones, it's because we're kind of sort of outside. Because where are we?
We are actually at the original homestead of the ranch here in Glenville. It was founded in 1858. Actually, before that, in 1854, by a man named John C. Reed. My family, my great-great-grandfather purchased it in 1858 from him with the vision of making this the town of Glenville. Unfortunately, the stagecoach moved, and so we were no longer the stage stop or the hotel, the blacksmith, or the undertaker business, but then we just became a ranch.
Is this one of those situations where it's where they moved the highway and everything died?
Essentially, that's how it happened. Back then, though, it was just, we took the wagon wheels a different rut.
Is that why your family first moved here? It wasn't to get into the cattle business.
They were actually, back then, they were adventurers. So we were fortunate enough in our family that we had a cousin, was my grandfather's cousin. Her name was Florence Myers. She was our family historian.
Yeah.
And her and a distant relative from Canada, where we came from, had actually traced us clear back to the times of the Roman Empire in Constantinople.
Wow.
And our journey through France and England and Australia and Hong Kong and eventually into Canada. We were shipbuilders and sailors, land and title from William the Orange, and essentially adventurers that were looking for work at the time in Boston had gone down there and just said, hey, we're going to go see the gold rush in California. And so they took off. That ended up here, and we have a letter from my great-great-grandfather saying this is the most beautiful place he had ever seen in his life. He was going to build a ranch here and start getting the family ready. They're coming out.
And called this place home.
It's God's country.
What got your family into the cattle business?
Back then, you only needed about 50 cows to take care of multiple families that lived here on the ranch. And they raised, pigs. And really, the first big cattle drives out of this area were not cattle. They were actually pig drives.
Really?
To feed the miners. And they came from this area and the Pasco family. And they drove 2 giant herds of pigs, and other people jumped in as well. And they drove those down to the valley to feed the miners originally. As you get more and more people, you need more and more meat. And so then beef cattle started getting bigger and bigger, and you got to feed these people.
Your family figured out there was more money in pigs and cattle than there was in gold.
Well, we weren't lucky enough to hit the big strike, so. Yeah.
Fast forward to now, you've kept on the family tradition in cattle. And how many head of cattle do you currently have right now?
From the drought in 2016, I sold about half my herd. I was running about 300 mother cows. In a really good year, I could run some stalkers along with them. Today, I'm down to 150 mother cows right about now. And if the market wasn't so high right now, I would have been buying replacements to build my herd back up.
Cattle cannot be grown overnight.
No.
This is not an industry where you go ahead and you plant something in the spring and in the fall you're harvesting.
Right.
How long does it take to build and grow a herd?
Well, it depends on where you're starting. If you're buying bred cattle, in 1 year, you're going to have something to sell.
And bred cattle is what?
A cow, a mother cow that has a calf inside of her, you're buying that bred female. She is pregnant, and depending on when you buy her, you're going to wean that calf in 6 to 8 months, maybe a year some places. And then from there, you'll get its vaccinations, and either you're retaining the ownership through the stocking phase and the feeder stage, or you're selling it to the next person that will do that themselves.
But there's money in keeping it fairly small.
Well, right now, and it's not so much the money, it's the convenience. So we're seeing record markets in our beef industry across the United States.
Why is that?
Supply and demand.
Okay.
So 2016 wasn't just a drought for us in our area here in Kern County in California,
Right.
But the Western United States really was hammered. We saw this real big sell-off of the mother cow herd. And we
Right.
got down to the lowest numbers we've ever seen. And we're still there. We still have not begun to build up. Then you add on to it, we have COVID hitting right after that. That hammered a lot of people, and a lot of people just said, you know what? My land is worth a lot of money to develop.
Right.
Things are really expensive, and I don't have a lot of money right now. This is the time to get out and retire. And so we saw a lot of people that basically aged out of the industry, and their kids didn't want to come back to it. But I had a wise neighbor one time tell me from the Rankin Ranch that he's never had to work a day in his life because he loves what he does. And that's really the payoff. That's better than any amount of money you can get. I may not be getting rich at this right now, but I'm happy and I love what I do.
There are a lot of different kinds of cattlemen out there. What's your niche?
So I'm a commercial cow-calf operator,
Okay.
which means I'm essentially the beginning of the assembly line. I have the powerhouse, the mother cow, that produces that calf, that renewable source of high-quality protein for the American and world consumer. I buy registered bulls to breed to my cows, my commercial cows. They have a calf 9 months, 10 days later. I raise that calf for 6 to 8 months around. Once that is done, I wean that calf and I market it to basically either a stalker or it'll sometimes go straight to the feedlot depending on the size of the animal or the person that's purchasing it. From there, they'll go on to the packing house. Once they're finished at the feedlot, they'll go on to the packing house. From the packing house, they end up on your grocery stores or fine restaurants. The person that's buying my beef is anybody that buys beef, period. If you go to a restaurant, there's a good chance you're going to buy my steaks.
Right.
If you go to a grocery store and you buy that high-end choice or a prime,
Right.
there's a good chance you're buying my beef. There's this misconception that so much of it's from out of the country and we don't know. And it's true to an extent. But for the most part, if you buy your meat at a grocery store, you are helping your local cattle rancher. If you buy your meat from Sizzler or a real high-end steakhouse, you are helping your local cattle rancher.
And if the house you're in isn't a home or a community, might I suggest you buy a new one from Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty. Born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear just like Melissa's, who asked, we keep hearing the phrase cost to gain regarding products or services sold. What formula do you use that works?
The simplest way I think I can explain it is I buy a calf and I'm going to plan to sell that calf, but I have to put feed and maybe medicine, maybe other things. I have to take care of this animal to get it to a certain weight to sell it. If I buy this animal and I put $100 of feed, medicine, and my time, because you always have to pay yourself. I see that mistake a lot. People don't ever pay themselves a salary and they go, well, I'm making money, but you're only making about $3,000 and that's not enough to live off.
Right.
So you got to pay yourself when you figure these things out. You figure all that in and then say I get 200 pounds. Well, that 200 pounds divided by that $100, it's 50 cents per pound of gain. And that's my cost. That was my cost to gain that. If I'm selling above that, now I'm making money.
Right.
And that's the objective of what I'm trying to do.
Do you also include other variables like the cow or the calf that gets injured and you have to have the veterinarian go out? And we're not talking about the veterinarian that takes care of Fido or your cat. You're talking about a large animal veterinarian that has to go out and rescue the animal. Do you also account for that as part of your cost of gain?
Everything is an expense. Everything is written down. Everything is figured out. We try to budget as well as we can. I just did it with my banker the other day, last month. I try to figure as closely as I can my budgets off of my previous year, and then I go back through. Everything gets involved. Everything that's there that costs me something on this ranch is put in, but that's also something that I roll into my taxes to figure out as well with my accountant.
When you're doing your cost gain, you mentioned that you went through a pretty horrific drought and everything went through a down cycle, and now you're back in an up cycle like that. How do you, if you're going year to year, how do you account for the years where they're leaner than the others, and how do you figure those into your margins?
We do 5-year projections, and we're always kind of doing those just to kind of figure out, but you never know what's the unknowns that's coming. So you always try to leave yourself a cushion. But for the most part, if we can break even on a ranch, we're doing pretty good overall. Because again, I'm paying myself already.
Right, I was going to say, define break even, because breaking even means you're paying the mortgage, you're sending the kids to college, and you're paying for all the things.
Right. Yeah, we figure everything in. I pay myself. I figure out what that's going to cost. And, there's some years that you're going to eat a little lean, and, the next year I'm like, we're going to have to cut back on some of this other stuff to be able to figure out where we're going to go with this. And I've done that with hay purchases the next year. During the drought, I generally buy about 3 loads of hay, large truck and trailer loads of hay every year. During that drought, I bought 6, more than doubled, and I was already selling cattle, and so you're already out that money.
Right.
And then you're out the money for the next year because you've sold part of your herd that was going to give you cash flow for the next year as well.
Right.
So it's a double whammy, really, all the way around. When you figure those, you looked at it, and what we did is we're going to have to cut some other things off. And maybe that new truck I was looking at, because this one's starting to break down, it's not going to happen, and it didn't. Ultimately, I try to be more efficient than anybody else, and I try to have each cow on this ranch to produce more per acre, dollars per acre, than my neighbor. That's my goal.
Have you gone to cattle auctions and you look at some of your competition, what their individual head of cattle go for, and you sit there and your cost of gain, and you go, oh, he lost money?
Oh yeah, we all know what our neighbors are doing. We all see their cattle. We see them on the video markets. We know what they're doing, and we see what works and we see what doesn't work. You see somebody that maybe doesn't do. You may think they're not a cowboy at all or anything like that, but they're a good businessman.
Right. How do you sell your product?
I went through the video markets, and so I'd call a representative from, say, Superior Livestock or Western Video Marketing, and they would send a representative out, and they would film my cattle. We'd fill out a contract about what they are, and we'd kind of guess, looking at them. I'd do a check weight, and then how much they're gaining per day, and figure out what they're going to be, and then we'd sell them on a video sale, and this is the delivery date, and we'll have a window there, 10 days or something.
Sure.
Once they're sold on that video market, it's just a live auction on video, so you have buyers across the country bidding on those cattle. It's a really wonderful deal they came up with. Superior really got it going. And once they're sold and they come and deliver them, you load them on a truck, and then vamos, they're gone. The check's there from Superior for you. They're guaranteed. They're bonded. Take it into the bank, and you watch it go bye-bye, and you never really get to see it.
Gone are the days where the cattle drives to the auction house, where the auctioneer is rattling it off as the cattle are going.
And we still do that to some extent, because we have our local sale yards, which are, what I'm using today, whether they're in Hanford or Western Stockman's Livestock, Overland, Visalia Livestock Market. Those are kind of local ones. They're all great, and they have great auctioneers, and the guys that are managing them do a really good job to help market your cattle. And if you call ahead of time and kind of let them know what's coming, like, hey, this is what I got, what's the sale? They'll go, hey, I got a better feeder sale coming up over this one. This is when you want to be in. And then they'll start reaching out to buyers that they know that are looking for calves. And they're doing the same thing that representative from the video sale is doing, just on the more local level. They get orders just like anybody else. The guys are looking for cattle and need cattle, especially now. Again, we have the lowest numbers we've ever seen. So guys are reaching out everywhere they can, trying to fill cattle, trying to fill their ranches, and trying to fill their feedlots. So it's a great time to be selling cattle.
And that brings us to the Visioneer Game. And the Visioneer Game is brought to you by Minimum Press of Bakersfield. Do you need yard signs, foam boards, banners, or signs on the street? Give Minimum Press of Bakersfield a call at 661-323-7757 or visit them at mmpbakersfield.com. And when you call them, ask about their 24 by 18-inch yard sign special for the month of July 2025. Give Minimum Press of Bakersfield a call at 661-323-7757 or visit them at mmpbakersfield.com today. And Visioneers, if you're not familiar with the way the Visioneer game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the random generated word is going to be, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, Jack, you do realize that the entire cattle industry is based upon your ability to get these 3 words correct. And if you don't, all the livestock around the world is going to perish and die?
We solve global warming, I guess.
All right, your first word is premium.
I try to do everything I can with my cattle so that I get a premium price.
Nice, that's 1 for 1. You're on your way. Okay, your second word is operation.
I try to run a very efficient operation.
Nice, that's 2 for 2. Now you do realize it all comes down to this. If you don't get this word right, it's all over. Your word is campaign.
Unfortunately, when I ran for state assembly in 2016, I lost my campaign.
That is 3 for 3. Well done. I'm not so sure losing the campaign is worth winning the game.
Well, you know, it's one of those things. It's you got to look everything that may be a negative and see how you can turn it into a positive.
Now that you have this life-changing moment on this life-changing platform, who would you like to thank for being here?
Dear friend of mine, and I know people look at our friendship and they go, man, it's odd. He's so much older than you. Like he looks horrible. He looks, you know, this, and for being 72, he looks really good for 72. Mark Boren.
A previous guest.
Yes, our previous guest. He's not 72, but he is way, way, way older than me, and just a terrible human being. But you know, I thought we were really good friends. And I'd go to his house, and God, he'd just bring out bottle after bottle of Camus wine, and it was so wonderful. And then I watched this episode, and I noticed something that he said about Camus, and I'm starting to think that I'm not his really good friend.
Unloading his wine on you.
I'm his garbage disposal. He gets gifts from people that are doing, like, here, Mark, here's this great bottle of wine. We love you, Mark. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us. And he's like, here, Jack, take this and get rid of it. Get rid of it. That's what this guy's doing to me. It breaks my heart, that old son of a...
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty, selling Bakersfield homes since 1992. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. Visioneer Jordan asks, we like our accountant as a friend, but we can't help feeling he keeps missing something. How do you find the right accountant to audit your accountant?
You know, I went through this issue myself, and it started off, we had been using my dad's accountant for years, and he was a great guy, but he had quit being a CPA. And although he still had his license, he was running all these other businesses, and he basically had my dad and 2 other clients, and then me and my wife.
Right.
And it was becoming an issue where we were asking a lot of him, and it's not fair to him. I met a guy at a political event because I am involved in politics. I'm still the current chair of the California Cattlemen's Association's Political Action Committee, and a very nice guy, used to work for the IRS. So I thought, this is who I want on my side. That way, if I get in any trouble, you know, we're ready. We know how to fight the system. I was always raised by my dad. You know, we don't hide money. We don't do the cash thing, anything like that. The government knows each and everything that we do.
Right.
And I am a believer in that, and I'm going to write off each and every little thing I can according to code. And if they say I can't, that's fine, but I'm probably going to find something else somewhere else that I can.
Right.
I'm very willing to play the game with them as much as they can. It was made for businesses to be able to do that.
Right.
So one, start looking into what you think your business needs. There are tax codes, and you can Google that. It's very simple to find out. You know, if you're selling a piece of property, do I want to do that 179 like-kind exchange? Those are things that you should look into and find out. When you start looking at those things, you can start asking your accountant those same questions. What about this issue? What about this tax code? Can I use it? How does it work? And if they don't know about it, and if they don't really think about it, as my accountant didn't, it starts to become an issue. So I was really educating my accountant a lot, because I also chaired the Tax and Credit Committee for the California Cattlemen's Association. I started educating my accountant on a lot of the things that we were using within the ag industry as a whole, and things that I needed. Because I stressed for years with that, you know, wondering, and if I get audited, am I going to be able to show what's really happening here? And I know he's missing this, what else is he missing? And having those second guesses. And I think to run a good, successful business, you can't have that in the back of your mind all the time. You got to have that feeling that I've got a partner in my accountant, and that they're going to take care of me.
When did you know that your father knew you could take over the business?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a tough question. My dad's dad died when he was 16. He took over the ranch. Went on to Cal Poly, graduated, came back at 39 or 40, I think 39, said, I'm going to go back to law school. Went back to law school, got a law degree, graduated, studying for the bar, getting ready to take the bar, and I'm suiting up for first game of my senior year of football at North High. And coaches come and get me and say, hey, your dad's been in an accident. Family friends are there. Come and get us. One of them was the pastor that married my wife and I, and a good family friend, Dr. Farrell Neely. And you talk about friends that are always there. That he's been there for my dad and mom forever, and for me. I get a little more, sorry, I apologize. But so at 16, I was 16 as a senior in high school. At 16, it fell to me to run the ranches. My dad was dying in a hospital, was not supposed to live. I had to be here. Then he came home for the long recovery home, setbacks, infections, all kinds of things. He was not going to live. And doctors were honest about us, it was not a beautiful thing that I did here. I did not run the operation well, but I busted my ass, and I still went to school, and I still finished out the season of football. Until that point, all my little league games, tournaments for school, educational tournaments, whatever the case may be, whiz kids, spelling bees, my dad never missed one of them my entire life until that accident. And so that was a tough year. But, excuse me. When he finally did get better, he said, every decision's mine, the ranch is mine. And he would give his 2 cents once in a while, but, and you know, that voice behind you, your guiding light. But he knew then. And, God damn, I'm sorry. I was fortunate enough that my dad, lived a lot longer and was with me. Got to watch his grandkids be born, and that was something he loved. But he's always crippled after that because of the accidents and had a hard time. But was always real supportive. And we yelled and screamed at each other. We fought like cats and dogs. But at the end, we always apologized, and he'd always say he was proud of what I did and how I did things, and changing the genetics. I did things. But God, it goes back even farther than that. It goes back to the lessons of how were you taught to do something that you loved, and be successful on your business or your ranch. When I was 14, before that, my dad made me start going working for other ranches, and he said, maybe another ranch does something better than we do, more efficient. You need to learn, be open to new ideas. Maybe you're going to have a boss that's just a jerk, and you don't want to be that way, because someday you're going to be a manager of the ranch and you're going to have people working for you. You don't want to be that person. So how do you learn from that? Learn from that person. Don't be upset with that person. That's who he is. That's what they're doing. But learn from them, and learn how to be a good boss. And what I try to instill in my kids is, look at what I do and learn from it. Don't try to be me, try to be better. And I tell them the same thing. If somebody does something that's more efficient, better than that I do, let's try it. Let's see if it works on our operation. Let's try to make it work. We'll try it. You always, and it's especially in the beef industry, but it's all businesses, you have to be willing to adapt You have to be willing to learn new things. That's why doctors have to go to conferences all the time to learn what's going on with modern medicine. That's why my wife's all over the country all the time to different events and things, learning about new robotics and things like that that are going to make healthcare better for everybody in Kern County. That's why she was one of the ones that built the AIS Cancer Center for Adventist Health. Was everybody was having to go over to LA to get quality oncology work done. They don't have to anymore. 90% of all women that have breast cancer now go to the AIS Cancer Center in Bakersfield because of what my wife and the people around her and her original bosses did and thought, the visions that they had. You have to have that in every business that you do. And that's something that my dad instilled in me. I am willing to listen to anybody and any idea at any time, and I'm always willing to learn and try to improve not only myself, but my business, because I know I'm human, I know I falter, but I want my kids to have somebody to look up to and say, yeah, I can be better than my dad. Not because he was a bad man, not because he was a jerk, not because he was a shitty dad, but because he was willing to change and wanted me to be better, and I can do that too.
When are you going to know? Or what are you going to see and know that your kids can take over the business?
So Reagan's 13. She's my cowgirl. John's 6. He's still got a long ways to go, but Reagan's riding her first colt this last year, and being in town and stuff, we're not putting enough time on our horses. It's a pain. So the colts are going to be a little bronchier than they should have been this long because we're just not putting the time on them. And so gathering to go to the mountains in April, and we were having hell with him crossing creeks, and this colt that she's riding, and his name's Brownie. And she said, Dad, I can't ride him to the forest because we got to cross 3 creeks, and I can't do it. And you'll be mad at me, and I'm a yeller and a screamer. I am not an easy dad, but I reward really well, and I show a lot of love and affection. And so I said, all right, here's the deal. If you're gonna ride my mare, you have to get every gate up front, and you're leading the way, and you better do a good job. And okay. And so I rode the colt in the back and with the dogs, and we went and we made it. And this year was the worst year I've ever experienced going to the mountain. And it was awful, and a big portion of it was her fault. And she got her ass chewed and yelled at and screamed at. And at the end of the day, she rode back home, and I chewed her ass on the way home about it. I was still angry, I was still mad. And a couple days later, we were horseback again riding, and she said she wanted to go do this again, wanted to do something else, take the lead. And it was, okay, she's got it. She's learning, she's figured it out, and she'll never have anybody run her down. She'll be tough. She'll be able to think critically through a problem. If I'm not there, she'll be able to figure it out without me. And she has a work ethic. She's the top of the school at Norris Middle School. President's list all 4 quarters. She got accepted in a special STEM program down at San Diego State University. She got an award she got lettered for her volleyball. She got a special award for her PE teacher. Her PE teacher reached out to me and was asking questions. And I said, well, we do this, she's such a great kid, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I kick her ass on the ranch, ha, 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 and this and that. And he goes, well, ranch kid? I said, oh, that's what we do for a living, we run cattle on the ranch. And he goes, it all makes sense. And she's got that work ethic that other kids don't. And I think if I died tomorrow, she could do it. So.
Jack, this has been a real treat. Thank you for joining us on Small Business Celebration.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a great opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. It's fun. It's definitely not what Mark Bourne said it was going to be. And it's everything he said about you was a complete and utter lie. Mark Bourne, I'm not saying he's a liar, but it was a lie what he said about you.
I've said this before, but I tried to put the bar so low that you can step over it. Not quite high enough that you can trip over it, but try to keep the bar low for you.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I had a great time. Thank you so much for coming up here and visiting us on God's country.
And if Visioneers want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
You can check me out through the California Cattlemen's Association. We're doing a lot of things there. If you feel like supporting our political action committee, I'd appreciate that. We have a big event in August out in Paso Robles, which I am chairing. But also you can reach me on social media, Jack Lavers on Facebook, Jack J. Lavers on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn, I think, but I never check it. So I'm there, wave, I probably won't answer. Come check me out on Instagram. You can see me working out.
And I'll be right back with my final thought. You don't need a radio voice to be successful. You don't need a radio voice to be successful. A couple weeks ago, we had Danny Hill, the owner of Hill Broadcasting. He owns a couple radio stations here in Bakersfield. And he was on the show and he was talking about how people sometimes try to project an image that is not who they are. And what happens is when somebody is on the air in radio and they go through and they have that radio voice because that's the image they want people to portray and think of who they are. The problem is when they get out into the real world and they meet the public, what happens is the public goes, who is this person really? And the same is also true for you and I as business owners. If we go through and we try to portray an image that is not genuine to who we are, yes, we're going to go through and we're going to try to gloss over our imperfections, like being an introvert and being an extrovert on TV with a lot of practice. People begin to see through that falsehood, that false narrative that the business owner is trying to convey. So if you're struggling with people's perception of you, they sit there and begin to question who you are when they actually meet you in person, perhaps it's your radio voice, because you don't need a radio voice to be successful. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration. I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough.
The best breed of dog to herd cattle is, I can't tell that because they've all been mutts. They've all been Kelpie crossed with Pit Bull, or Border Collie, McNabb with little Pit Bull, or Queensland, or Kelpie Border Collie. It varies on the dog and the personality because each dog's a little different. Each dog's a little better for something else. Athletically, Kelpies and Kelpie crosses, in my opinion, are an amazing animal. But I love my Border Collies, I love my McNabbs, I've loved my Pit Bull crosses. I've had some Hound crosses that were pretty amazing. We even had a Beagle cross that worked cattle, Abby. And she was a pretty phenomenal dog and actually worked cattle better than a lot of other people's cattle dogs. It's kind of funny. And she was tough and gritty because she had that black and tan hound in her, with the Beagle and everything. So it's just, you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And it's just, you really love the good ones and they stick with you forever. What is nose to tail eating? That would be where the individual buys an animal and eats everything from the tail to the head. Your tongue, your eyes, your cheek meat, your oxtail, your rib meat, your flat meat. Not just the good cuts of meat, not just your good ground up hamburger or your good roast. You're eating it all. You're eating the bone marrow. You may even eat some of the tendon, which is great collagen for muscle recovery and your own tendon recovery. That's really what it is, utilizing every inch of the animal that we can. And really, if people truly took the time to sit down and figure out where all the parts of an animal go into, from your drywall to your makeup to the parts of a vehicle to helping oil and plastic, things like that. Beef cattle and dairy cattle are some of the most amazing animals out there and a completely and totally renewable resource. There is a difference in quality between grass-fed, basically my cattle and finished beef, which we mostly do here in the United States. Meat producers. It's mostly a personal, big palate, beautiful reference. High marble. If you like grass-fed, you're going to like grass-fed dairy cow. If you like corn-fed, you're going to like corn-fed. Corn-fed tend to be better marble milk. Better yield. That's the difference. All of her energy, all of her power goes to producing that milk. The chewing ability for year after year after year. It's a lot. My cows have been bred to produce more and more. They're a lot more tender. And there's a fine line between it a little bit. You don't want to go too far. People like the flavor of grass-fed better. Some, not very many. Australia, that's the only one. South America. The other way is the cow gets so much. As our beef gets around the world, corn-fed, more and more people are starting to choose it for the pound. They both go both ways. What's the difference between a milk cow? There is a difference and a beef cow. Basically, my cattle are bred and corn-finished beef, which to be meat producers in the United States. We want big,
mostly a
beautiful,
personal
high
palate
marbled
preference.
steaks.
If you
Whereas
like
a
grass-fed,
dairy cow,
you're gonna like grass-fed
is
cattle.
her option.
If you like
is to
corn-fed,
produce
you're gonna like
big,
corn-fed.
beautiful
Corn-fed
gallons of
tend
milk.
to be better marbled.
That's the difference. All of her
Better
energy,
yielding.
all of her power goes to producing
And
that milk. That's what she's been bred for
the
year after
chewing
year after
ability.
year. Whereas my cows have been bred
It's a
to
lot
produce
better.
more and more meat. And there's
They're a
a
lot
fine
more
line between it a little bit. You don't want to go too far because then you have
Again,
cows that
people
won't
like the
produce
flavor of
milk for
grass-fed
their calves,
milk.
and their calves suffer, and
Some,
they don't
not
produce
very
any.
many. Australia,
And
but
the other way
more
is
in
the
South
cow gets so
America.
much milk that they don't really produce
As
very
our
good
beef
meat,
gets
and there's
around the
nothing to
world,
sell out.
corn-fed, more and more people are
Pinch,
starting to choose
they
it
both
for
go
the
both
cows.
ways. How do you brand a cow? We do it the traditional way. We do a branding. Our brandings are more fun than most because we like to have a party. More people than calves, generally speaking, but I only invite good ropers, people that know what's going on. We heel the calf, we drag it to the fire, and somebody holds the front feet. So it's stretched out, can't move a lot. My daughter's learning very well, but you trust people on the ground that know what they're doing, whether it's putting on the iron, banding or castrating, earmarking, giving shots. And everything works, generally speaking, efficiently. And that's the goal. And the goal is to get that calf up and out as fast as possible. As soon as you're done, as efficiently to cause as least stress as possible. The less stress we cause, the more weight they'll gain, and the less likely they are to get sick. We don't want to cause stress as much as possible, and that's our goal. How many people does one whole cow feed? That is a tough one to answer because it depends on the people that are eating it or the family and what they're willing to eat of the animal. Those that'll eat everything, I would hope that a family of 4 that are big beef eaters, it'll last you a full year. Maybe a half for a family of 4 that doesn't eat a lot of beef would last them a full year. It depends on the individual as a whole. The best thing about owning a cattle ranch is that I get to be my own boss. I get to watch my kids grow up doing the things that I did and that I loved. And I get to watch them develop common sense. And I think that's something that people are fearful now with AI, that our kids are starting to lose. But my kids have to figure out how to open a gate, how to work through problems, because a cow's not gonna always do what you wanna do, and neither's a horse. And sometimes that trail might be washed out. What are you gonna do in those instances? And I'm not always gonna be there. So I make them work it out, and they gotta figure it out. So those are all things I think are great.